Image or graphics are one of the more and most commonly used UI types that is used and seen in almost every Android application. So it's very important to know how to display images in Jetpack Compose. In this video, I will show you how to do it. First of all, note that we often show images in two ways. We might load them from our resources in Android Studio inside our application resources, or from a network, and these are two different topics. Therefore, I'm gonna show you how to display images from resources first, and in the next video I will show you how to load them from network, from the internet. So let's get started by creating a new application in Android Studio. New project, empty compose activity. I name it Jetpack Compose Image. And I don't change anything else. I press finish and wait for the project to be created by Android Studio. Alright, our project is ready. I close the left side, and first I'm gonna get rid of the preview and the default composables that have been added by Android Studio, and I empty the content from within the set content section. Alright, I'm gonna create a composable for displaying images. So I type comp and press enter, and then I create a name for it, like for example image or compose images. Alright, inside it I'm gonna use a column because we might want to display several images below each other. I import column. Also, I give it a maximum size, fill max size, and the first thing you need to know about displaying images from the resources is that you can use the image composable for that purpose. So the composable that we will use is image. Image. I import image, and as you can see, it's from the foundation package. I import it, and it has three forms of calling. So we have three ways of calling the image composable, but I will use the easiest one that takes the painter object. So I use the one that has a painter parameter, and for that I call painter resource a method, a function that allows me to load an image from the resources of my application. So here's where I will enter the ID of that resource, that drawable. I don't have that drawable yet, so I leave it empty. And the next required parameter is content description. It's important to enter this as well. So for now, I leave it empty string, but I will complete it later. Because we have two types of images, vectors and raster graphics, or bitmap images, I'm gonna show you both of them. And for each one of them, we will have one image. Therefore, I'm gonna add another image, and I'm gonna use the format that has a painter parameter, again painter resource, and content description. But since for the first one I'm going to load a vector, I'm gonna add a text as a title, acting as a title for it, that tells us what it does, tells us that it is actually a vector. So vector graphics or graphic here is one image, and for the second one it is bitmap, so bitmap graphic. And next we need to load our resources. First I'm gonna load a vector graphic. How do I do that? You can find one of vector graphics from the internet, one vector file from the internet. That these files have often an extension of XML. You can find them, you can add them to your project, or you can use one of the built-in vectors that are bundled in Android Studio. So for that purpose, I'm gonna use one of the vectors from that are bundled in Android Studio by pressing File, New, and then Vector Asset. And then from the clip art section, I'm gonna click it and then select one of these vectors. For example, the Android one. I select the Android one and OK. Also, let's give it a bigger size, something like 100 by 100. Although it doesn't make difference, you can later change it. Vectors are scalable and you can be worryless. You don't need to worry about the size change. It's just a convenience. And I change its name to Android for easier reference, and then press next. Finish, and that file, that XML file, is added to our drawables. Therefore, I can load it here as the parameter of Painter resource by typing r.drawable.android. And its content description is Android bot, Android TM, of course, but, and the second one is supposed to be a bitmap. So how do we add a bitmap to our resources? I already have downloaded a bitmap from the internet. I have it in my downloads directory. I go to my pictures directory. Actually, it's in my pictures directory. So I copy it. I come back here to my project and paste it to my resources, drawable, Control V, the drawable folder, OK, and I name it fantasy. It had a file name of fantasy, or let's name it bitmap for a simple reference. OK, now I can use it inside Painter resource by saying r.drawable.bitmap. Looks like the bitmap name wasn't allowed, or the image is a little bit too big. So let's change it. Let's change it to something else. Change the name to something else like raster. See if we can reference it. Raster. Not yet. It's a little bit too big, I'm afraid. So I search for another image. I go to pixabay.com and I find another image. Let's use this flower. Free download. Use the minimum size. Download it. I download it to my downloads directory. OK. Copy back to Android Studio and paste it to my drawable directory. Let's name it flower. I'm gonna get rid of bitmap. Let's remove it. There we go. I'm gonna use flower here. Okay, Now let's see what we have by previewing our UI, our Compose Images UI, by defining a preview function, and then I'm gonna name it Compose Images Preview. You can name it whatever you like, and I'm gonna call Compose Images here. There we go. Let's see what we have by switching to preview. I minimize the left section for Project Explorer, and I refresh the preview pane. We wait for the preview to appear. It should be available soon. There we go. As you can see, we have two types of images displayed. One of them is vector graphic and the other is bitmap graphic. And both of them are placed in our column. We have also added a title on top of them by adding a text composable. And we can therefore know what type of image they are. Also, in order to have the maximum width available to them, we can give them some modifier. So for image, I'm gonna add a modifier. Let's see if it's the third parameter. Looks like, yeah. So I can say fill max width and fill max width for this as well. And let's not forget to add a content description for the flower as well. Okay, let's refresh our preview and see what we have. You can play around with these composables and add different modifiers like borders and so on and so forth. There we go. As you can see, now we have the maximum width. We can also change their height if we wish to. And one other thing that we might want to do for our images that we display is changing their content scale. As you can see, currently Jetpack Compose tries to respect the aspect ratio of my image, and therefore it has to put the image in the center of the area that is available to it. But if I change it to another content scale, for example, this will look more beautiful for the flower, of course. One of the parameters is content scale, and I can change it to one of the values of content scale: fill bounds, fill heights, fill width, fit inside, and none. You can play around, experiment, and see how each of them affect your UI. I'm gonna change it to crop. This is essentially something similar to center crop that we used to have in our view-based images that we created for Android applications. Actually, it was used for image views, if you remember. I refresh the UI. Another refresh. There we go. Now you can see that it has changed the content scale, and therefore it is cropping a section of the image, respecting its content, actually respecting its aspect ratio, but scaling it at the same time, therefore cropping a central section from the image, giving it a nice view like this for the flower. Okay, one other thing before I wrap up this video is clipping the image. You can also clip the images using modifiers, of course. So for the modifier, Also, if you're asking why I didn't use the modifier here, modifier name, the parameter name, it's because it's the third parameter of the image composable, therefore I didn't need to use it. I didn't need to use the name of the parameter. It's the third positional parameter. So I'm gonna clip it this way by using the clip modifier. This allows me to cut a part of the image and create a circular image or something like that. So the parameter that you will need to pass into the clip modifier is a shape, and this can be one of the ready shapes like circle shape. I import it, let's refresh it, or it can be a custom shape that you can create by calling rectangle shape or cut corner shape composables. So let's refresh it again. There we go. As you can see, it creates a default image for us, and we can probably see a better view for the image if we add a spacer after the title for it. Spacer like giving it a height of 16 or 64 depth, and then refresh it. Refresh. And because it doesn't have enough height, it cannot show the whole circular area for the image. So if we increase the height of the image, we can see a better result. So fill max width, and I can say fill max height, and then refresh it. We expect that this will give us a circular shape for the image. There we go. It allocates the whole area available to the image and then applies the content scale that we know cuts the central part of the image and displays it for us. Actually, a constant height will be better here, something like 400 depth. Refresh it. You can use this technique using circle shape, clip, for creating profile images and so on. Another refresh. There we go. It's more beautiful. And if you are looking for a custom cut, for a custom clip, you can actually create your own shape using cut corner shape and then passing the size that you want, or round corner shape, rounded corner shape, which will effectively create round corners for you. You can play around with them and see the result. I'm gonna switch back to circle shape, and that's it. That's basically how you can load images from your app resources in Jetpack Compose and display them, whether those images are bitmaps or vectors. I hope that you liked this video.